Welcome to the Center for Transformation Institute podcast, where we are uniting therapists everywhere for personal and professional growth. Your journey starts here, at the place therapists grow.
Karen, it's so good to see you.
Thank you, Monica. Great to be with you today.
Yes, I've been so looking forward to this conversation because I know that the people who listen to CFT Institute therapists, growing therapists are going to be so interested in all that you have to say. You are a wealth of knowledge and experience, and you have quite the history with Life Model Works.
Thank you.
Yes. And so first of all, I think it might be good just to talk about how we got connected because it's such a shalom story, such
Yes.
an interesting story. I remember first hearing about you when I was talking to Alex Popa, who's now on our team here at Center for Family Transformation in North Carolina. And he mentioned, "Have you ever heard of Dr. Karen Struble? Struble? Have you ever met her?" And I said, "No, I don't know who this is." He said, "Well, she's right there in North Carolina, and she's good friends with Dr. Wilder. In fact, he was her supervisor." And I was said, "What? What's going on? I've never met her before." So it turns out you know Alex so well.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe you could talk a little bit about that, about your relationship with Alex, your relationship with Dr. Wilder, and we can talk about how you and I came together.
Sure. Well, let's see. Back in the early 2000s, the first decade of the 2000s, I was teaching undergraduate psychology at Montreat College in Western North Carolina, most recently known as the land of Hurricane Helene. Unfortunately. But anyway, I was teaching there, and Alex Popa came in as a freshman. And it turns out that he was recommended to Montreat College by a family friend of ours. And so I met him right away when he started at Montreat and learned that he wanted to become a child therapist and that he would be majoring in psychology and human services at Montreat. So, in the course of Alex's education, he took 2 or 3 courses from me in the human development track. I
Okay.
taught child and adolescent psychology as well as adult psychology and aging. And let's see. So I first knew Alex as my student, but also as a friends of mine, a friend of mutual friend. Um, when Alex did a great job at Montreat College, and then he went on to work at Weirs Valley Ranch, a group home for children who need safety and a fresh start. And he did a wonderful job there and pursued his master's degree while he was there. So he asked me to provide clinical supervision for him in doing his internship there at Weirs Valley Ranch. So I became his clinical supervisor also for goodness, a year officially, and then after that, ever since, he has consulted with me when he needs to pick somebody's brain on whatever is happening in his practice.
Oh, that's
Um,
Yeah, and so it's so interesting how it all intersects, right? Because in 2018, 19, I got connected with Kyle Furlick, who's also on our team, and he had just graduated Regent. Now, I had met him a couple years before, but he came to work with me in 2018, 19, and he had just graduated Regent, and so we worked together for several years. And then I think it was almost maybe a year and a half ago, we were talking about having someone else join our team, but it's always great to have someone who is connected elsewhere. And he'd been talking about his friend Alex, who he had in grad school for so many years. And I said, Do you think your friend Alex would consider moving to North Carolina to work with our team? And he said, I don't know, but that would be a dream come true for me. And the funniest story is that as we, continued talking about it, Alex said, well, I know about the life model. Dr. Wilder actually came and stayed at my house. And
Yes.
we were like, what's going on? How is this possible?
Yes. Okay. So now we'll connect the dots between my experience with Alex Popa and my experience with Dr. Wilder.
Mhm.
Um, way back in the day. In fact, it was the fall of 1988 when I was a graduate student.
Mhm.
I began an internship under the supervision of Dr. Wilder at what was then known as the Shepherd's House Counseling Center in Van Nuys, California. And little did I know at the start of that year that the experiences I had there would shape the rest of my life profoundly. In fact, as I look back on my life now, if I had to name the single most influential person on my life outside of my own family, that would be Dr. Jim Wilder. Um, I quickly realized when I began working for him that he was a very special person because he was specially equipped by God and he was specially submitted to God.
Mhm.
And he was also extremely conscientious in his academic pursuits. And so I realized very quickly that he was the most knowledgeable person I had ever met, at least in our field. And he was also the most godly person I had ever met. And that combination just drew me like a magnet. And I said, I want to learn everything I can learn from this man about not only psychology and mental health, but what it means to walk with God. And at the time, there was no life model yet. I made the decision after that 1 year of training that I would double up. It was time for me to move on to a different internship. And I did complete the other internship, but I continued working part time to keep a foot in the door and continue to get supervision and teaching from Dr. Wilder. So I ended up working for him for 5 years.
Wow.
And yeah, working under his supervision for 5 years. And I feel so fortunate and so blessed to have been able to learn straight from, the person I consider to be a great master in mental health, as well as in spiritual development. So during those 5 years, what Dr. Wilder talks about this in a lot of his lectures as well. What we were all learning at the Shepherd's House Counseling Center is that people were coming in with bigger traumas than we could manage. None of us had the capacity to handle the really flood of severely traumatized people that we were seeing one after another all day long. And I do believe that the people who were in the most pain were drawn to that counseling center because many of them, at least, I believe, sensed what I sensed the first day I walked in the door, which was the difficult to articulate, but unmistakable when you detect it, presence of the Spirit of God. And I think that's what drew me and held me there more than anything else, despite all the pain, despite the enormous, overwhelming challenges of what do we do with all this trauma.
Yes. Yes. So you really were baptized by fire just into the world of psychology,
Yes.
also into the world of life model before it was life model.
Well, I probably wouldn't say it that way, because I would just say into the world of Dr. Wilder and Shepherd's House before there was a life model,
Where there was a life model. Yes. But
before we had found the life rings.
the way I think about it is those years of his own psychological development, or his own development of how to approach the field of psychology was all incubating internally, right? And then also a lot of the people on that team during that time formulated that first book, The Living from the Heart Jesus Gave You, correct?
Yes, yes. So I worked with some of the people who wrote that book. Others came after I left there. But anyway, that's beside the point.
Yeah.
The point is, while I was there, I remember Jim coming into staff meeting one day and saying, folks, we need to learn how to do something different. We are all treading water as hard as we can, and we're all going under. And this is just too hard. It's just too hard. We need to figure something out. And that was revolutionary in itself. What people who are maybe younger therapists today, who have come up in the age of buzz phrases like compassion fatigue and secondary trauma and self-care, might not realize is that back in 1990, nobody talked about those things. Mm-hmm. It was, the practice of psychology as a discipline was very academic, very clinical, and you were supposed to just learn everything you needed to know from a book. Mm-hmm. And then there was no guidance about how to deal with the pain that the work you did created. And there was no permission to even speak about it.
Right. So that secondary trauma was just happening to everyone in the field.
Yes, definitely. Because on my other internships, the same was the case, but nobody was talking about it. And people had all kinds of neurotic habits. I mean, therapists were developing all kinds of neurotic habits and even like smoking addictions and all kinds of things because it was just so unmanageable. And everybody felt like it was unprofessional to admit that what we do hurts.
Yes.
Yeah. Thankfully, the field has come a long way towards allowing those of us who practice to be human and to admit our own weakness and to learn how to cope with and manage the stress of our work. And the life model that Jim began at that staff meeting in somewhere around 1990, 1991, somewhere around there, maybe 88 or 89. Anyway, the life model that Jim and colleagues began at that time was revolutionary. And at the time, it was just people taking a few notes with whatever thoughts came to mind on scratch pads and, putting together our thoughts. And my number one thought at the time, actually, was I need to get out of here because it's too hard.
Yeah.
It was too hard.
Times 1,000.
Yes, it was just too hard. And I had already spent 4 years in college, 7 years in graduate school, and I was and I got married at age 21, and I was ready to start my family. Yes. Chronologically.
Yes.
Emotionally, I was a mess. And so I just wanted to get out. And my husband got a job offer on the East Coast, and we moved as far away from Shepherd's House as we could possibly get.
Wow.
So, but the thing is, the person of Dr. Wilder and his knowledge base and wisdom and character were something that I just couldn't let go of. And so even though I moved 3,000 miles away, it took my babies to what I considered safer place. Um, I found myself writing letters to Dr. Wilder, and he would mail me cassette tapes of Alan Shore.
That's great.
Yeah, this was in the days before there was such a thing as an internet.
Oh, I love it.
There was not even such a thing as a cell phone.
Right.
Yeah, so I would write letters, and occasionally we would have a phone call and talk about these things. And he was very excited when he discovered the Alan Shore stuff in the early to mid 90s.
I love that story. Yes.
Yes, it was mid 90s when he discovered that.
I remember him saying like that there was an intern that he sent to the training and then they came back and said, I didn't understand, but fully what was going on at the training, but it correlates with what you all are coming up with here, so you might want to dig in.
Yes, yes. So fast forward another decade.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Jim and company on the West Coast, and also by now in the Midwest and other places, because he's put together this team, because all of a sudden there's such a thing as the internet, and there are cell phones, and people are connecting from different places.
Perfect.
So by the time we're midway through the decade of the 2000s, right about when I was meeting Alex Popa, Jim says, we've got this life model up and running now, and it's so amazing, and I want you to see what it's about. And so we invited him and Chris and Jen Corsi and Ed Maritza Corey, and of course Kitty, to come out to Montreat College and run a Thrive conference there.
Okay.
And I was so amazed that the first thing I noticed was the profound difference in Dr. Wilder himself.
Yes.
Because even though he was extremely learned and wise and godly in all those years that I had worked with him, I had never seen him happy.
Ah,
Yeah, it was very rare to ever see him smile.
right.
And in 5 years of
He was
working
one of
with him,
those therapists who was burning out and just keeping up and all of that.
yes, I very rarely saw him smile. And then all of a sudden, here came the Thrive team, and everybody was smiling and laughing, and there was color and music, and and it was just like, I was like, wait a minute, who are you, and what happened to my old boss? And I thought, whatever it is that's happened to you, I want some of that.
What's he drinking, right?
Yeah, yeah, I want that.
Love that.
And yeah, so yeah, so I was able to sit in on the Thrive conference and catch up with and I mean, we had kept up personal connections between the Wilder family and our family. We've stayed friends all these years. For instance, he was the pastor who christened my first child, and that sort of thing. But professionally, I was in a different space. I was teaching undergraduates and raising my kids, and I was 3,000 miles away. And so just to discover all this stuff that had been created while I was off doing other things, I was like, oh my goodness, I really want this. So I began reading all the life model books and bringing them into my classroom at Montreat. And this is how Alex got his first whiff of Dr. Wilder. He had to sit through or got to sit through some videos of Dr. Wilder's teaching intro to life model stuff. Sure. And yeah, we wove that into our classes there. And then then my family made another move from Western Carolina to the Triangle area. We're now in the Durham area. And when we came here, I left Montreat College behind and opened my own private practice. And this was about 10 years ago.
Okay.
When I opened my own private practice. And, the first set of books on my shelf would be life model stuff. And I continue.
Yeah.
This is my new favorite.
Yes.
The Growing More Human Community series. My practice specializes in child psychology and family therapy. And I just love weaving life model into the work that I do. And I'm so thankful that all these years I've been able to maintain a relationship with Dr. Wilder so that I could learn about these things. And personally, also, it has benefited me greatly. My husband and I have completed all 3 tracks of Thrive, as well as the newest track they've just developed, which is for graduates of the Thrive conferences. And it's like a refresher course. And we've done 4 tracks of Thrive, and we've attended some Transform conferences. But if you want to know how I incorporate life model into my clinical practice,
Yes.
I will try to summarize without taking too much time. But I think probably the overarching principle of my practice is that when a family comes to me, is that the child needs to be the apple of the parent's eye.
Right.
And if that child, for whatever reason, no need to blame anyone, but if for whatever reason that child is not the apple of the parent's eye, my goal is to help them get there.
Yes. So good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so as I work with both children and their parents, sometimes together, sometimes separately. And when I'm working with the child, it's I would say the rhythm that I'm hearing in the background is that this child I need to be creating a rhythm, in other words, in the room with the child, in which they experience themselves as the apple of my eye while they're here.
So good.
And and the only way I can do that, though, because I have a lot of kids who have big problems. And the only way I can do that is that I've learned to practice the Emmanuel lifestyle and asking God to help me see this child the way he sees them.
Yes.
Yeah. And asking, yeah.
That's so good. I was actually thinking about that just yesterday. I was talking to an adult client, but who is having some serious breakthrough and is recognizing that there's something about the way that I'm interchanging with him that has created that feeling for him that he loves to come see me. He feels so safe. He feels enjoyed. And so I was explaining this concept to him that this is how we are transformed into really being able to do right brain psychotherapy, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
engage with our clients in this sense of they are fully enjoyed and fully accepted just because they exist. But
Yes.
that's only through the power of the Lord, God's love in us coming out.
Right. Yes. And, because sometimes it's only God who can love this kid. And,
Yes, because there's so much in the immaturity and the habits, the pain that's coming out of that person that makes it hard for a human to really be able to connect.
Yes. Yes. And I will say the kids who are harder to love are rare. Most of them I find very, very lovable right from the start. And when I'm fortunate, as I am in many cases, both the kids and the parents are easy to love.
Yes.
But it's when I have a child or sometimes a parent who is harder to love, I ask God to show me how he's seeing them in this moment.
Yes. They're
Yeah,
true.
because sometimes the child is adorable and the parent has had so many years of water under the bridge of pain in their own life that they are the ones who are more difficult for me to
Mhm.
love. Yeah.
It's really that from the Thrive, the main pain, main heart characteristics, like what's this person's true identity and how is
Yes.
that linked to their wounded self? And
Yes.
able to not just in your left brain conceptualize that, but you're actually able to be transformed into love, like the scripture says.
Yes. And in fact, that's what I want to add to this conversation, which is that I think the reason I have stuck with my relationship with Dr. Wilder and then consumed everything I can get from the life model all these years is that the 5 years I spent working under his supervision helped me become closer to the person God made me to be.
Ooh,
And it's because I had that experience with him of
yes,
being seen and soothed and safe.
yes.
And it was just transformative. I had the experience with him of being the apple of his eye, as I know so many other people have experienced that. That
Right.
his presence that just offers grace upon grace upon grace.
Wow.
And, why wouldn't I want to keep coming back for more of that?
That's right. That just gives me chills because I think, that's been my experience too, not specifically with Dr. Wilder, but just in terms of attaching to the life model, learning how to connect to Emmanuel presence, learning how to create belonging around myself that gives, me and the others in my groups that sense of being enjoyed and loved and accepted. That whole experience has helped me become more fully alive, like the life model is, like fully alive in Christ.
Yes.
All God created me to be, live in knowing that it's not fake. Just because I have some woundedness and I act in this way sometimes based on my pain, doesn't mean that identifies who I am. Like I am the aroma of Christ. I am who he's created me to be, and I can stabilize myself in that place. And so that just gave me chills when you said that because I can so identify.
Oh, yes. Yes. I mean, it's the experience of what it really means to be loved by God.
Yes.
We can hear that and read that and listen to sermons on that our whole lives, and sometimes people never experience
Mhm.
the actual love of God in the room that they're in the situation that they're in. And even in the middle of our most difficult season at Shepherd's House, before there was a life model, Dr. Wilder was already in tune with the presence of the Holy Spirit, at least.
Mhm.
And it was enough
Mhm.
for me to want to keep coming back despite the pain.
Pain. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm sure you saw in that even in the pain, you were growing your capacity.
Yes. Yes. Very much so.
So there's
Very much.
value, like there's such purpose in pain when we're not just being traumatized by it, but when
Yes.
we're suffering well because we're connected to one another and we're having this joy in the midst of it. And I mean, that's what one of the other life model informed therapists said this. She said, the difference I see in my counseling practice is that I have more capacity
Yes.
and stay present with people for longer amounts of time and more intense issues because of the work that I've done with Life Model. Specifically, she's been all through the Thrive tracks as well.
Yes.
So that's wonderful. So I think follow-up questions to you around all of this, and it might be that you can answer these things pretty quickly because of all the background you just laid. But what I'm really wanting our audience to hear is how has the model impacted you personally, which I think you've answered, and how do you use it professionally? How do you see it impacting the clients?
Ah, yes.
So that and then the last one is like how does it impact clients, but also how do you see what would you say to therapists who know little or nothing about the model? Like to help them kind of be inspired or motivated or just given a hint of this is something to look at and why.
Yes. Okay. Great questions. Um, First, I would say that people, both children and adults,
Mhm.
respond very, very well to the nonverbal message, I'm glad to be with you, when it's authentic.
Mhm.
And it's only the goodness of God that keeps it authentic for me day in and day out. Um, and uh, and I do enjoy my practice very much, but that's because of the goodness of God. And um, kids do so well with this. When
Mhm.
I explain to the parents that the two things the kids need most are joy and belonging, and when I can help them understand that those smiling eyes are what your child is looking for constantly, and the more you can feed them your smiling eyes,
Mhm.
the better things are going to go. And that and and they do go better. And excuse me. Um, Also, the six big negative feelings I find to be a really helpful
Mhm.
lesson that parents grab onto, and it helps them understand their child so much better than they did before. The six negative emotions that comes from the work of Alan Short, Dan Siegel, Jim Wilder, um, putting it all together anyway. Um, Helping parents understand that their child needs a right brain, nonverbal pathway to and from all six, which is using the SAD acronym. It's sadness, anger, disgust, or feeling scared, ashamed, or despondent. Whatever it is that your child is avoiding most,
Mhm.
that's because they don't have a nonverbal path back from it. And you can help them learn that by modeling it for them, by sharing 4+ stories, which are simply stories of your own experience with this emotion in a small amount. Make
Yeah.
it small so that your child can digest it and make it not about them. Oh, I was so angry when that red light lasted forever and I needed to get to the office on time. And so this is a story that has nothing to do with your child, right? And that it's, oh, and I found my fist clenching on the steering wheel, and I found my chest tightening up and even my neck tightening. And I really needed to get to the office, and and that red light just wouldn't turn green. And so I practiced breathing and asking God, what do you want me to know right now about this?
About that.
And I felt my chest start to loosen up and my neck start to loosen up and my hands on the steering wheel start to loosen up. And then I realized it's gonna be okay. And I made it to the office. I was 2 minutes late, but it was okay.
Mhm.
And I was able to go on with my day.
Mhm.
Um, those are the kinds of stories that make all the difference for the kids if they hear the parent tell it to them authentically, quickly. They're not preaching. They're not saying, I want you to learn how to manage your anger better.
Right.
They're just saying, oh, I had an anger moment today, and oof, I was so glad when I remembered to breathe and ask God, what do you want me to know? And so I teach this to parents. They teach it to their kids. The kids start developing a pathway to and from anger. And before you know it, that kid who was really hard for me to see as God's gift in my life becomes God's gift in my life and becomes the apple of their parents' eye. And,
because they're able to live from their true self. Like we just unlocked, instead of getting stuck in a difficult emotion, then they have all this shame associated with how they're navigating life. They're now can be fully alive. And it's just beautiful to get that done so early. It's huge.
Yes, it really is. It really is. And, there are a number of other therapeutic modalities that dovetail beautifully with Life Model. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about them, but I use Life Model as part of an integrative framework in my therapy with kids and families. And there are other models that use the brain science really, really well in applying it to children and to family work and to parenting and all of that. But what the Life Model adds, the reason the Life Model adds value is because it adds invoking the presence of God.
Yes.
And even in the simplest, most mundane, everyday moments, that Emmanuel lifestyle of remembering, oh yeah, I'm not alone in this. God's here to help me with it. And, excuse me. And yes, we can muddle through this together and come out laughing. Now I say all this, and I have to give you a disclaimer. There are cases that are more difficult than others. And my practice, like every practice, has success stories and stories that weren't as successful as what I wanted to see. And that's a fact of life. But my hope is, and my experience has been, that as people increase their capacity, as they persevere in therapy, and as parents increase their capacity, and as children find an outlet for a lot of their own disturbing emotions, then they get on the path. They get on the path to growth. And so that's the other thing about Life Model that I love, is that we're on a path to growth. That this isn't just about eliminating symptoms, that it's about growing up. And I love to help parents grow beyond the stage of maturity that they started with. And I love to teach kids, even from the get-go, that your job is to handle these tasks in your life and to handle them well, to learn how to do that. And I want you someday to grow into the gentle protector person that God made you to be. And that's always what I tell a child who is angry, acting out. I'll always tell them, God made you to be gentle and protective towards anybody or any creature who is younger than you or smaller than you. That's how God made you to be. And something's getting in the way of that. So let's see how you can move towards that.
Ooh, that's so good. So what I hear you saying, Karen, is that your clients, whether it's a parent or a child, that they're finding their way to their best self because of how you are incorporating the Life Model into your practice, and how you, through the Life Model, you have found the platform for really funneling the Spirit of God through your own life into the lives of these people. And so that's really beautiful. And I hear also in what you're saying that that's why therapists should pay attention.
Yes. Yes, I think so. It's value added on the top of other wonderful therapeutic modalities that are secular that I use every day.
Yeah.
Um, but it's truly a bonus to learn to discern and detect the presence of God in the room as we work.
I completely agree. I can concur with that in my own practice. And so I'm just so thankful for this time with you and just to have been connected with you this last year. It's been really beautiful and I've really enjoyed our time together today. And I know so many people are going to get so much out of it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Monica.
Yes, we'll talk again soon.
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of The Place Therapists Grow. We hope you will join us again next week. To expand your knowledge and continue your growth journey, go to cftinstitute.com and take our introductory course to find out how the life model can enhance your life and your clients' lives too. We look forward to continuing to learn and grow with you. See you next time.